And of course the other aspect to it, the thing that they say they need to do is to give the room for the Reserve Bank to cut interest rates, which I guess will happen. And there was a bit of gratuitous advice from the Prime Minister this week. And the Reserve Bank put out the minutes from its last board meeting saying that if inflation continued to moderate, there could be a case for cutting rates, which is basically code for saying we're going to cut rates. And the next inflation figures come out next week. So it is interesting.
It's created a bit of confusion, I have to say, because here they were in their statement saying China's slowing, there's economic weakness in Europe, labour market conditions softening, housing market conditions soft overall, could be a case for further monetary policy easing, and then say, but we'll wait for the CPI number next week. Inflation surely isn't the issue, shouldn't be dictating interest rate policy at this point in time. You've got a retail sector and a housing market, on fire, and here you are with the RBA telling us they're going to wait for the inflation number to decide to cut interest rates. They're just missing the point.
I've never heard so many people ripping into the RBA. Hello, Marcus, joining the cacophony. And I think it's a dead cert. They'll definitely cut next month, and rates will probably be down to 3.5. I reckon within 6 or 9 months.
The futures market is got 90% punt that they will go down. And
with the housing sector, which is more indebted than any other in the world, the struggling punters are looking forward to some relief.
Yeah,
90%. That's the bet in the futures market, right? So, well, that's definitely going to be there.
Done deal. So you probably won't get the banks doing anything, so ANZ will stay as a shag on a rock, lifting interest rates last week.
You've also got the government calling for an interest rate cut as well, and the debate this week was, whether Glenn Stevens has got a next term if he continues to resist them.
It was quite funny. His 7-year term finishes in September next year, so he'll be good for one last election campaign rate rise, and then out he goes.
Yeah.
Of course, what people mostly attack are the banks for their interest rate moves. That's what everyone loves doing. We saw this week a politician who actually supported the banks raising interest rates. Here's opposition finance spokesman Andrew Robb commenting on the ANZ decision, and then followed that is his boss, Tony Abbott, who wasn't quite as supportive.
They're not stupid, and I don't think they would willy-nilly put up their margin like this if they weren't suffering a problem with their margin. We've got banks that are heavily part of superannuation funds. Millions of Australians depend on the banks performing.
Look, I'm not here to defend the banks. The banks are quite capable of defending themselves.
Well, that's true. So, where are we heading now? I mean, the banks are going up. I guess one thing that Andrew Robb didn't say is that the banks also need to ensure that their profits are in reasonable shape. Otherwise, the cost of their funds in Europe will go up even more than they have. And I guess that's the other reason for having a surplus, is because if Australia has a surplus, then perhaps the cost of funds for the banks borrowing in Europe will come down.
Well, if the banks have borrowed, 400 or 500 billion offshore to fund mainly the $1.1 trillion mortgage book. So, yeah, you've got to not crowd out the market. But the banks are worth $32 billion. They're going pretty well. And I'm surprised to see political massacres like Andrew Robb stepping out and defending them. And why would the ANZ pick a fight over 6 basis points as well? I just don't see the point.
I reckon I don't think this will last, this ANZ meeting. It's a seasonal thing to do with the GFC. The moment everything's relaxed and all that, they'll probably cancel that meeting because they're getting a lot of flack for no upside.
That's right.
They didn't cut. They didn't put them up as much as everyone else in February, so they're playing catch up.
No one noticed that, though.
Yeah, they're the second cheapest. They're the second cheapest.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
You would think from the headlines that they're the nastiest bank in the world.
Absolutely.
One of the reasons
they totally misfired on this whole thing.
One of the reasons they told me they put up rates last week was to keep people educated that they are moving rates out of cycle with the Reserve Bank. It's no good saying you're going to do that, as they did a couple of months ago, and then not doing anything all the time. Everyone will forget about it. Yeah, they actually have to move it a bit.
Every Thursday, every second Thursday in the month, the ANZ board are going, what are we doing here again? We've got to stop this.
But someone should tell the ANZ board to maybe try putting them down.
Ah, yes,
that would be a novel concept.
God, you're a marketing genius.
Incredible.